Welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art.
Welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art. It's been a minute since we have been recording. Welcome back, Todd.
Thanks, Art. Been a minute. That's what my daughter says.
I learned that. I'm trying to be a cool 50-year-old guy.
Are you
trying to use all
50,
that current lingo. Of course, that's probably already. People don't say that anymore, I bet.
No, things move quick. You're 50?
I'm 49. This is my 50th year. I'll be 50 this year.
50 this year. Yeah, I'll be 52. Yeah, 52. Wow, time flies. But you know what? When I remember like 50 when I was young was old.
Yeah.
Like my dad was 40, fully gray. You know, and I don't know. It's different times.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still got a lot of. This is not dyed. This is actually natural.
I'm not gray.
I have gray in my hair. I have a lot of gray in my hair.
How funny. We're reverse. Like I have a gray beard, you have a black beard, and my hair, I have no gray in my hair at all. And, but very Santa Claus looking beard, very wise.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
Well, we have been gone for a while. We've been, me personally, we got a lot of stuff going on with kids. We had spring break. I had a workshop, it's just been a lot of crazy things. We're busy. Like when you're a father, you get pretty busy.
You're at a very busy time of fatherhood too. It's kind of a busy time at that age when the kids are like that. And yeah, so it's very, very time consuming, especially when you have dogs involved. How was the workshop?
The workshop was amazing. So we worked with, as you know, Brian Gruber, and it was basically a human retreat. But people brought their dogs, and we had 6 participants come. We had one participant. I'm going to say her name. It's okay. She's probably one of our biggest fans. She's our biggest. She listens to every episode. Jackie Robinson. Shout out to Jackie Robinson.
Hi, Jackie.
And you know her as well. And
Yep.
She came out and brought 5 dogs, and it was really cool to work with her and her pack of dogs. And she has 2 particular dogs that are pretty reactive. We're lunging at all the other dogs. And we actually we captured all this video, everything that her dogs had done, but also the process of how we integrated them into the pack of everyone. We had all the dogs off leash at this place, hanging out with dogs, cats, chickens. It was so cool. It was amazing. And there was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 dogs total that were there.
Okay.
And we're just kind of just hanging out. And so most of it was, doing some energy work with Brian, which was another amazing thing, how Brian was able to do energy work on a dog, but through the human, and I was kind of blown away. If I can share the whole,
Is the story that you told me
Yes.
the most crazy one?
Yes.
Go for it. That's because we have to be open to a lot of, I think, layers to this, and that's kind of what it's telling us, right?
Yeah, and we captured it on video too, but I think that, it's probably something, it's more personal because some of the stuff they say is like really personal. But she allowed us to, Suzanne, who's also another listener, brought her dog Bear, and she was basically talking to, Brian was communicating through Bear using, doing something called a balance session and doing some energy work, but communicating to Bear, or Bear's communicating to us through Suzanne. So he's like doing muscle testing with Suzanne. And so Bear is responding to the questions through Suzanne while Brian is doing muscle testing. Give me a yes, give me a no. What is your name? State your name that's false. And like she would stiffen up for no and soften up for yes. And then as she starts to go, she's mentioned something that Bear doesn't want to be there. She's like, that she doesn't want to be here. And what Suzanne doesn't know, which I explained to her later, was that the first night we had a sound bath.
How long after was this session with Bear from your interaction?
The very next day.
So it's a full day's passed.
Not 24 hours, but it was probably 20 hours. So almost 24 hours. Okay. Because Suzanne was the last one we did it for the day. And so, so the previous night before they had their balance session, I was in charge of all the dogs. Okay. And so had some tethered over here. They were really good. But I had Bear because she was the one that was, my kids were running around and she was kind of suspect of kids. And so that's something that we kind of worked on.
Sounds like a husky.
We did have a husky there, which you do know this husky, Brian's husky.
Brian's dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm saying Bear sounds like a husky.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
so I knew that Bear has an issue with cats, right? I knew it. And so I had to go get something in the house. And the way the house is set up, there's like this screened in porch, and that's where the cat hangs out. And I had to go inside to get something. And so I was like, I'm just gonna bring Bear with me. And so I walk in, and as soon as Bear walks in, there's a cat in there, and he has this big old explosion. So I address it real quick, and I kind of follow through. But this is where this dog is really sensitive. And what happens, she started to kind of like, what in the world just happened? And she looks up at me, and then she starts to kind of like avoid me at this moment, right? And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, like this is a good opportunity to leave it like this so that I can show people how to like repair it, so to speak, right? But the next day when she has that session, Bear says, yeah, I don't want to be here. I want to avoid this place, right? And Suzanne is saying, well, Brian is asking Suzanne, well, what do you want, Suzanne? And she goes, I want her to meet me in the middle, which is interesting because that's exactly what I've been talking about on that day, or the day of, which was when we work with dogs and you go from a fight or flight avoid to surrender, like they may go into avoidance, but you have to bring them back towards the middle, which is the acceptance, right? And so I had been talking about this. So when Suzanne says, I just want to meet in the middle, but Bear is also saying like, I don't want to be here. And then Suzanne says, oh, well, I want to meet in the middle. And just all these things were kind of coming.
Were you sitting there when that happened?
Yes.
What was your first thought?
I was like, oh, I was like kind of blown away, but also, oh shit. Like,
did you put too much pressure on the correction?
Yes, probably. I wouldn't say too much. It was just kind of like this reaction to the situation, right? Because it was pretty big, right? It was like
reaction
really
was pretty big.
Yeah. And so, but here's the thing is that sometimes there's always ways to, it's important to recognize what you see and then also how to adjust, right? And so, so the next day I said, I mentioned to her, actually, did I tell her? I don't remember when it was, but I said, hey, by the way, I need to spend some time, like, what's Bear's favorite thing to do? She's like, oh, loves playing fetch. I was like, I need to change our relationship a little bit and just have fun with this dog. And just, I don't care if it makes a mistake. I don't care if she jumps on me. Like, I just want to, because I know like she's sensitive enough, I can always dial her down if I need to. And so I ended up playing fetch with her. And that was like the thing that got her, like, she was like, okay, I get it. I'll meet you in the middle. So then she started hanging out with me and but you have to be able to repair those things. I remember Colleen would always tell me, dogs are very forgiving, which they are, and so that was the one thing that I always in the back of my mind was dogs are very forgiving.
They're forgiving if you like you did try to repair it, but behavior is also kind of sensitive, like it was that it can get stuck where you put it. You just knew enough that you had to change it, and it's forgiving in that sense, right? That's the whole moment.
Yeah. Well,
right?
This is the other thing is that another analogy that I used before, like all this stuff happened, is that when people like use an e-collar and they just leave the dog in avoidance, and so people see like, oh my God, my dog's not reacting. This is amazing, but the dog is still in avoidance. That's still not good either. It's better. It's better, but it's not good. We have to get it back to accepting, right?
Yeah, it's good if it's intentional, right? But I think this is
like
where
rattlesnake avoidance training. You want them to be avoiding it.
Of course. And that's what's interesting about, we've talked before about the verbiage when they say corrections are aversive. We don't agree with that. That's the whole point, is a correction needs to be create a form of acceptance. And follow, play, explore. Sometimes if you just go for follow, the dog would have a conversation like that if they could. I don't want to be here. We see it, but you used play. Good call. And it's interesting the dog doesn't like kids if play is such a tool of connection. What does it do with kids? Like nip at them, round them up?
No, so River had run by, because my kids were there also, and River had run by, because there was a bunch of, our kids and Brian's kids were there just having a good time, just playing. And so River happened to run by, and Bear just like, like kind of did that charging, but not making contact, just kind of like still keeping like a space, but like kind of barking, but also close. And then River, I was kind of proud of River, how he took the whole thing. Like he got nervous of it, but he just kind of like turned his back and just stopped and didn't move. And my wife was there. My wife ended up walking, and it was kind of cool to watch. Even his reaction was, even in the time where he got nervous, he just kind of like not paused in fear, but just kind of like, just kind of didn't move. And that was the thing that kind of just like diffused everything.
He grabbed for the gi. I'm like, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
Grab for a bit. The real jiu-jitsu training's helpful.
Yeah. So, it was good to watch. And then as like, there was other times when I started to bring in, a lot of the kids, like I was handling Bear, and the kids were playing, and Bear was playing as well. So everything that I was kind of doing was very intentional as how I was introducing certain things to certain situations, and so it was really cool just to kind of like have Bear, be okay. And the thing with Bear is what I like these types of dogs where they're very sensitive to like energy. And so when I brought out Brian's dog, the Husky, which you've met before, that dog he's all energy, right? Like he's very strong, confident, and Bear was like, I want nothing to do with this dog. I'm going to be over here. And no matter where, Mr. Pup was, that's the dog's name, Mr. Pup, he was just kind of like, I'm going to be on the opposite, like always kind of like giving this bubble. And then the other really cool thing was, another woman brought her 2 collies, and one of them, she kept telling me, was like, this dog always corrects all the time. And I was like, all right. So had the dogs off leash, bring Mr. Pup out, and he's just a lot of energy. And he starts to like do this play bout, but this dog is just not having it. But you can I don't know if you've noticed, but like sometimes you can tell when the dog is like, they don't like it, but they are about to shift over to play, and they're like, rah, 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 and I was like, just let it go, like, let it slide. I can already see that you can hear the barks. The barks are starting to change from like, get away from me to like more of a playful bark, And so to kind of see how that shifted, and then everyone got to see, and we're all the dogs are off leash at this point, right? And I was like, just watch. And sure enough, Mr. Pup got this dog to start playing and changed the bark. And, it was really
amazing
cool
how some dogs know how to apply pressure, right? They just know how to use play. They know how to put the pressure the right way to shift it.
Yeah. So it was really cool to watch all that. And we got a lot of good responses, got a good feedback from everyone that they really enjoyed it. And also, we ended up watching videos, a lot of horse videos, which is really interesting to watch because you can kind of see like an animal that's in flight, but how you can use that flight to kind of help the animal out. It was just amazing. Like,
all right. So what do you attribute that dog, saying it didn't want to be there to? Do you think it held on to that experience?
Yep. I totally believe that. And I hadn't mentioned that. I'd only mentioned that to my wife because
had you solved that problem before that situation, or did you? So you'd already gone and played with the dog?
No, I hadn't played with the dog yet.
So you
I did it after.
You have gone and played with the dog had you not heard?
It was already in my mind to do. It was already something I wanted to do, but I was saving it because for the next day I needed something to do because after the first day all the dogs are good. After the morning of the second day, all the dogs are good with each other. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like all the dogs are good now, And so I was like, okay, I'm going to save this one for last. But just because day 3, it was 3 days. And so the last day I knew that I was going to save that. But at the end of day 2 is when all this stuff comes out, but I already knew what I was going to do, but it's just kind of coming out. Like the dog is speaking, through Suzanne, to Brian and the whole group there. And it was just kind of interesting to listen to what the dog was going through, which I was already planning on, playing with the dog the next day.
I wish like we could go back and nobody knew. And then you went and repaired it and you had him do it again. That would be where I would just be like, fuck. All right. The whole thing is that they're not hanging on to things once they go back to acceptance. But you said he stayed in avoidance, right?
Up until the last day.
Up until the last day. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the concept of being stuck.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. It would be awesome to know if you went back and did it again. If the dog's like, I love it here. Like, right. So it's a legitimate kind of fight, flight avoidance.
Well, I'll have to ask Suzanne because she had a session with Brian, a personal one. I mean, I can maybe ask her. But yeah, it was just cool to watch. It was as it was
Watching
happening.
people move energy around in a way like that. I remember this lady, and we met her, Joe Maldonado. When I
Yes.
first started working with her, I watched her do stuff. I'm like, look, this is not supposed to be real, but I'm watching it. And
Yeah.
it's weird, right? Like, it's like that shit shouldn't be happening.
Mm-hmm.
And over again, you'd watch him just kind of, and the horse would be like, or whatever it would be. And it was, hey, I remember one time, she's out on my patio and she looks at one of my dogs. I mean, it's generalized, but she looks at one of my dogs, white dog. It was a white boxer. He was deaf. I had him before Mr. Pickles. And she looks at him. She goes, yeah, it's going to be kidney issues with that one. And he died of kidney infection. I don't know, a year and a half later, 2 years later.
Wow.
So you're just like, fuck, that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just an all around like good time. There was even, talking about Joe, because I remember we brought Joe to TCW that one time. We had also done, we had done a pack walk in the morning. We did a meditation after, a guided meditation, and it was really cool. And I did it too. But all the dogs were with us. Okay. We're in this room.
Meditation.
Yeah, during the meditation. And so like they are just like passed out, right? They're just sleeping. And the minute Rachel says, all right, guys, well, let's start bringing back, move your toes. And then you just feel like the dogs start, you can shake. And like, as they were meditating with us, it was so cool. I was like, wow, as soon as she says, all right, go ahead and come back, like all the dogs start coming back too.
I mean, we've talked about this. I think that it's the level of, what do you allow yourself to believe as far as the level of energetic connection between you and your dog? I was convinced when I did that whole thing on the intelligence that it becomes, it's like telekinetic. It's like your dog there's almost a telepathy. They have it. We don't. You have to kind of look for it and tap into it. But I think they naturally have it. And they're able, like I was talking about they're able to, detect and sense things and understand changes on so many levels. Right.
That's the blood test, right?
Yeah. And I think honestly, this is how dogs, all the numbers on here, there's inflammation markers and hormones and testosterone. So this to me is a big one. I have a pretty high testosterone, and, my wife has very, very low. I mean, women obviously have a low one, but that alone, what does that do? Like, what does that smell do? And what was really crazy, and we were talking about this before, is that I had a splitting migraine as I'm taking the blood test. And the lady thinks I'm afraid of the needle because I'm just kind of barely getting through this. I feel like I'm going to throw up, that part of a migraine. And when the guy looked at my numbers, he could tell, I guess, from the adrenals, he could tell, because I can see that you're not stressed, but your cortisol or something was very spiked that morning. What was up? And I explained to him, I was blah, blah. He goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. So that right there, when people say, oh, I got afraid when I saw the dog over there. So that's the same thing. You get a spike. I believe anyways, they can smell it. I think they can easily smell it. In fact, if it shows up in a blood test and a doctor can see it, I would think they can smell it. But I mean, all of that stuff, man, that's fucking crazy. The sensitivity, the meditating with them. Do you meditate on a regular basis?
No, I don't.
No?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
I don't know. I just don't. I mean, I wake up every morning and, have my little mantras that I have, kind of do some breath work in the morning, first thing I do, and just kind of, I guess that's meditating, my mantras,
How long does it go for?
And go for 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's meditation. That's intentional focus on something that's like mind altering, so to speak, right? You're trying to intentionally inject or remove good or bad thoughts and so forth. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Well, it's more so like for example, like one little phrase of it is, and this is what Brian has also helped me with, because it's interesting that I always ask my clients, well, what do you want? But I don't ask myself that same question, And so Brian has really helped me out. Like, what do you want in life in general, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the mantras that we created was, I allow myself to receive blessings and trust the process in which they come, right? And sometimes when you receive things, like if something has to be taken away sometimes in order for you to receive something, right? And Brian is like, the world doesn't like empty spaces. So if something is removed, it could be very painful, but it's in order for you to get something else, you know? And so I focus so much on the things that were taken away. And then, or if I'm given something, I like guard it, like guard it as a resource, right? But then it ended up slipping through my hands anyways. So it's almost like this, I'm always living in this state of like fear of losing it, but also not having enough of it. That makes sense?
Yeah. Does he define what it is? Is that a personal thing for
Yeah, it's
you?
a personal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, Brian has really helped me out with those things. I highly recommend people use Brian for just
So then
help
your
with anything.
mantras are used to help with what those things are.
To remember the things that are important, right? It's, you know, having grace and or gratitude for my family, their health, but even like, so I recently lost a friend last week. She passed away of cancer, a really close friend of mine. And, you know, emotionally, I'm hurt. Spiritually, I'm grateful. You know what I mean? I'm grateful that I got to experience life with her. You know, but, you know, it does hurt. So it allows me to mourn, but with gratitude and thankfulness. And not that it makes it better, but it just, I look at the world differently. I, I've been on this whole, how small we really are. If you talk about like infinite, there's a creator that created everything that was always been, right? And so like that is mind blowing that there's something that's beyond space and time. Like you look in the stars, I'm like, that's even a small portion. It looks big to me, but it's a small portion of what this whole world is. So when I start to look at, you know, the whole world in general and meaning the whole space and time thing, that's just like, it's beyond my reasoning is what I'm trying to say, you know? And so even though it hurts that my friend died so young of cancer, but I also have to look at the big things in our relationship, her and I, of our friendship. And yes, I'm sad to see her go, but I'm also really grateful that I got to spend time with her. So, you know what I mean? It's just like how I look at things. And so, all the time, you know, a lot of times we just focus on the things that, like a victim, so to speak, you know what I mean? And
Well,
so,
it sounds like you're it's like intentionally framing things as opposed to letting those things define how you see it. You define how you choose to see or experience things. It's a big difference, yeah?
yeah, big time,
Yeah.
you know,
And it seems to be the secret in what people call happiness, right?
joy. Yeah.
Is if you can frame things to always bring a balanced perspective, and it's not happiness. That's kind of cool, man. That's and nice to be able to find somebody to be able to help you do that.
Yeah.
How many sessions do you feel like you've gone through, like, before it was something that really became conceptual to you?
Well, every session has been about something different.
Okay.
And, I will say the first one was about, yeah, I won't go into great detail, but more about relationships that I have with people. The second one was more about me and my past trauma that I didn't realize that I had, you know, cause I've always said, man, I feel like, I mean, I had a pretty good upbringing. Love parents. They treated me with respect. Like I was growing up around very loving parents, supportive family, things like that. But I always felt there's something there that I couldn't figure out. And so Brian was able to like really dig deep. And like, you know, they say trauma is generational. It's passed on. And like how we were able to figure out something from my great great grandfather, like through a vision that I had from my great grandfather, you know, and that was kind of mind blowing. I was like, what in the world is happening right now? It was one of those crazy experiences I've ever had. And I always am kind of embarrassed to tell people these stories because it sounds like I'm a weird person, but I don't know how to explain into words what just happened. Like, I just don't know. Like, and so, you know, that was very heavy that day. That was when we were in Florida. It happened the day before TCW. And that was like, oof, very heavy. Some of the things that I experienced during that. And then the last one, which was right before the workshop, just because I kind of,
Dude, I'm about to have an out of
okay,
body experience
okay.
because Mr. Pickles just farted right next to me. Let me open the door. Fuck, this is bad. Oh, wow.
You need to get a fan on that.
Huh?
You get a fan on that.
Yeah, I've got a fan right here. I'm going to do that too. Wow. Yeah, he uses, what is it? It's a body mapping technique. Is that what is something to that effect? It's the body. He talks through the way that your body relaxes or tenses up or gives kind of truth feedback, right?
Yeah, he's like your body can answer for you because it knows itself, right?
Yeah, Caesar's used them too. Now, that was one of the few I think disagreements we've had on with Caesar on reading dogs. So how is his dog as an adult?
What did Caesar say? I don't remember.
Remember Caesar always said it was we're like, man, that dog's kind of front, kind of
Yeah.
confident. That dog's really going in front. And Caesar's like, no, it's middle, very, very middle.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
He's more front, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because everybody was like, I don't know about that one, man. I have a different.
But Brian, who also, listens to the podcast, he told me that that Caesar told him that he was a middle. I can't remember what Brian told me, like a middle amongst, I don't know, a middle amongst other fronts or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, I see that.
Remember
but
what
also,
Colleen used to say? She was the front of the middles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, that's kind of solid. That's a good statement.
Yeah. I mean, he's a very, I think I see why Caesar would say that because he is a very happy-go-lucky dog.
Okay.
But his presence, his energy, he doesn't walk around. I think this is where Caesar maybe got that because he is like, he's very playful, very happy-go-lucky, but he walks around with this confidence as well. Whereas like some of these other confidence kind of move more slowly, more precisely. He's not that. Maybe that's where, I mean, as soon as I brought him out, he all the dogs were like, nope. Like it just set off this whole trigger of like, and Jackie's dogs are like going crazy because it creates so much energy. They're trying to make it go away.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't like to say breed, but having now Blue, who's looks like a shepherd but really is very husky. As soon as they walk up, they have an effect on dogs. That like this energy, it's something about. There's an intensity. The video I showed you. If you show the video of that deaf blind dog, there's something about these dogs, and time again, when I'm hearing some dog is super strong and super controlling, it's an Akita, it's a husky, it's a, you know what I mean, it's a Malamute.
Yeah.
There's this really interesting thing I saw on YouTube about I think is it the Malamute. There's a certain line of the ones that pull the sleds that they use and why they don't get tired. And it goes into the physiological explanation of how they convert food to energy.
Yeah.
And like there's an absence of something that they don't need, a process they don't need to go through. So food can get converted immediately into energy.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're eating, they never tire. And it was like, holy shit. So it made sense why they can go through all of that. And humans, you can start off strong, but then you slowly decline, but they won't. They can stay the same as long as they're consuming enough food.
And they consume a lot of food, a lot of calories. I was trying to get Jeff King on here, who's won the Iditarod race. And he's a IACP, I think he's a Hall of Fame member maybe, but is a member of the IACP. He's up in Alaska, just outside Denali National Park. And he has a place called Homestead Adventures, I think, and they have a bunch of huskies, and they have like these big hamster wheels and these treadmills. And so he's also an inventor. He's invented a lot of things to give the human more endurance to do all these long races. But he spoke at the IACP conference, I think it was like 2015, and that's the one that I had gone to. It was one of the most amazing talks I've ever heard in my life, because he talks a lot about how they feed the dogs and how much calories they burn and how long they run for and how they set up the food stations. And it is insane. Like, I really wish we could bring him on here. So if anybody knows Jeff King, I've sent him a DM. He did not respond to me. I'm a nobody. I get it. But I'd love to have Jeff King on the podcast. If anybody has contact with him.
You are not a nobody.
Yeah, but
that'd be a great guy to talk to. That'd be awesome.
He is amazing.
The stories he could probably tell you about things that happen between the dogs and each other, him and the dogs. I mean, think about it. You're out there, it's you, and you got an entire pack of dogs that all have strength and perseverance. I mean, if they're going to get into scrap, you're going to get all kinds of shit in the course of a race. I always thought that Lynn needed to do a show where he did like a pack of dogs, like 10 or 15 dogs, and he did one of the trails north to south, maybe all the way up through Canada, and just taped the whole thing, and just him living in the woods with a bunch of dogs.
Do the Continental Divide, and he's starting.
Dude, that would be riveting. I would watch every moment of that.
Lynn would be perfect for that. I've talked to Lynn about that, actually.
Yeah, I think that would be unbelievable. All right, Lynn, if you're listening, that's your thing, man. Get out there.
Or Jeff King, if you're listening, or know someone, Jeff King, send him a message.
Do you have those videos? So we're talking about like the vibe of things and like how everybody can sense the energy of everything else differently. I thought these were cool. You can mute it just so they can see it.
So your Mr. Pickles is deaf, right?
Yes.
And this other little shaggy dog is blind and deaf.
Yeah, so there's 2 videos with Mr. Pickles.
Watch this one again real quick.
Yeah.
I haven't seen these yet. You would never know that the dog is blind and deaf.
No. There's very much an energetic exchange here. And if you watch the other one, you'll see it again. So their greeting goes on for like 45 seconds, and I broke it down into 2 videos. And it's obvious. There's like this connection, or acceptance, however you want to say it.
All right, here's the next one. There's 3 that you sent.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah, very, very, you can see, right? Little,
you would never know.
No. Okay, blind and deaf. Now watch this. So everybody's always like, oh, why does my dog like or dislike or this or that or the other thing? I'm just saying, I'm making a statement. You can answer it.
You want me to answer this one?
I thought you were going to hit play.
Oh, you want the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Sorry. You got to cue me.
You're a bad play guy.
Wow. That's amazing. That's energy. Wow. That's amazing.
And in all seriousness, Blue's being relatively respectful.
Yes. This is amazing. Just watch this again. Oh, wait. It's still going. Okay. Let's watch it again. This is a good video, by the way. This is a perfect example. So again, we can't see where Blue is, but as soon as Blue comes in, it's already smelling. You can see the dog is already moving away.
See
puts
the
his head down.
right there?
Yep.
A little warning.
Yep. And this is without touch or sight or only scent. And that scent was what allowed that dog to go into that. That was amazing.
Yep. Cool.
That's a really cool video.
Isn't it cool? Because you can see the total difference of whatever you guys want to call that, And Mr. Pickles, whenever I've gotten him around other deaf dogs, there's a there's maybe a vibe. I don't know. Maybe they connect, but that was really cool. And Blue, it never really warmed up to Blue. It never did. It just kind of stayed in that. Nope, that's too much for me.
So why did they bring the dog to you? What was the problems, quote unquote?
So the woman who referred the owner to me as a longtime friend, and I think it was more just precautionary. Here she has this deaf blind dog. She wanted to make sure she was making good choices. Another therapist too, by the way. It was a therapist that owned the dog. She was doing a good job with it. The dog was more or less really easy. It was a very easy, kind of relaxed dog for the most part. I'm not a talker, so it's easy for me to work with those dogs. And I showed some ways to use the nose, prioritize the nose, and get it to understand more following your scent. It's kind of, if you trigger follow, it almost works in reverse. If you go and get a dog to follow you, they're going to be very scent oriented of you, right? They're not staring at you as much as they're smelling you. And then it goes back to this. You know what I mean? So then they're going to easily be able to smell what we are as in comparison to something else, and what, was that a smell? What was interesting. And this is where I think scientists would be better off than saying, oh, a dog loves us. We can tell because this part of their brain lights up when they hear our voice. Would be, what part of the brain lights up when that just happened? What part of the brain lights up when they smell that stressful thing I was talking about that the doctor asked me about? Like, what part of their brain lights up when we go through A, B, or C to see how we affect each other? But yeah, that was a cool appointment. I enjoyed it.
I kind of show you another video real quick that I
Yeah.
just, when you're talking about the whole nose thing, I just saw this on Instagram yesterday, so I'm going to pull it up here as a link. How do I do that? You would think I would be an expert. We haven't done a podcast in so long. I don't even know how to do this anymore. Chrome tab. Let's do a Chrome tab. And I got to bring it up here. Let's see if this pulls up. Of course, it's going to do this.
You can tell what time of day we tape by what I'm drinking.
What are you drinking?
Like my morning mix of roots and shit from the ground.
To fruit. Okay, window.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. This is it. I don't know if it's going to play.
Oh, shit. What?
Says he can hold his breath for over 1 minute. Fabi walks around with his eyes open and sniffs along the ocean floor.
I don't think it can't be sniffing.
I mean, we think it can't be sniffing, but why not?
Well, I need a vet on here to say the physiology if a dog has an access part to this coming from their nose without going back into their Mr. Pickles, their lungs. That's nuts. So to me, like what my first reaction was is the dog's going through the motions just by behavioral practice. It's in an explore practice mode. You know what I mean?
Okay. Do you remember when we had that video where they talked about the brain scan of the dogs when they were smelling, and they were talking about how it goes to the occipital lobe, which is for us is our sight and our vision. What's to say that the dog can't sniff when it's underwater?
Well, I think it could, but I don't think it can sniff in. It might just have be a sensory on the tip of the nose that it just needs to touch. There could just be a you know what I'm saying? It's like, so it can essentially taste it through the touch of it. That's what I'm saying is I don't have enough understanding of the way their nose goes in. Like if you sucked in, it would go in and you'd come up, right? So that's what I'm curious about. But outside of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw this video. I was like, holy cow.
Huh. Did the dog, I wonder if he taught it to do that or did the dog just start doing it?
No idea. I didn't read the comments. I just saw the video. I was like, what? I mean, it looks like it's smelling. Like it literally looks.
I had to gamble right now. No matter what, I had to gamble. I would say that dog is smelling through the contact. So that's what it's doing. And however that is, because I did a post one time about their ability to detect heat and stuff and it was in their nose. So maybe it's doing some version of that.
Yeah, it is.
Well, that's kind of cool, man.
Yeah, again, I hadn't seen those videos that you'd sent me. It's the first time I'm watching them. And so to kind of see that when you talk about using its nose, which it was doing. And then I remember about this golden doodle, the video I saw, like I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. I was going to send it to you, but I think you're taking a break from social media. So
yeah, I still haven't posted. So I posted a short video about a lady interacting with a puppy. It was a Mao. It looked like a little confident puppy, and she's fucking with it with her hands, and it's biting her hands, and then she puts it in a headlock. And I broke it down. I said, if you have a puppy who sees your hands as a contest or control, right? So you're petting the puppy when they don't want to, or you're grabbing them to put them in the crate and you're grabbing stuff. I go, you can get this. I go, you don't want it, especially from a strong puppy like this. What I didn't know was that it was a trainer. I thought it was an internet mom. It even said mom in the title. I thought it was like an internet mom who posted their dog being a dick. And that's what I thought. And I wasn't critical. At least I don't think I was critical. And people rip me up, dude. It's some of the stuff. The funny thing is that the direction it'll go, like misogyny and shit. It's like, what? And so I got kind of piled on, and they were all saying, I was stealing another trainer's content and taking it out of context for views. And the lady got all fired up too. And I just said, you guys are all fucking nuts type of thing, and checked out. Because when you get all that pressure coming at you, but you really can't do anything about it. There's no reason to try. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like trying to explain yourself is fruitless. None of that matters. And so it's just like, you guys have it. And I didn't take the post down either. I will, but I'm like, you guys just deal with it. And my whole thing is, after I looked at their point, it was like, okay, I just don't see social media as like copyright, like land. You know what I mean? I've got so much stuff out there. I don't see anything I have out there as something that has some copyright thing. So if I take somebody else's post and break it down, I don't feel like I'm stealing somebody's shit. And I would never use somebody else's concept, if you will. Pretty settled in, my
And it's not like you're making money off it either.
No. So I just don't.
You make no money for social media.
So I don't see it as that I stole somebody's content. So to that argument, that's how I see it. And so the argument that I took it out of context, no. Because the lady said she did it for entertainment. She had said that. And if you look at the video, I believe dogs are pretty sensitive to how we deal with them, even in small amounts. And it's clear this dog sees hands with a certain way. And so out of context, maybe they think the context is, yeah, that's cool. And I have a different opinion on that. So, but it was crazy, dude. People, it was like, wow, I haven't experienced that side of social media. I get the negative shit once in a while, but not an entire kind of, whoa, all right. And then I just took a couple of days off and it felt great. But what was interesting is it was such a shit day, dude, all at once. And then the next day of that
personal side.
Well, yeah, I had a personal side to it. And then I went and did an appointment, and it was with a psychologist. Like, in my opinion, probably autistic. I don't know if she knows it, but that's my opinion of it. Just my 2 cents. I lean in on that. So I'm not just pointing fingers. It's like, I get it right here. And I was there because they lost a dog. I also had a week where I had grief-oriented appointments. So they had 2 dogs. Their older dog passed away, and then they started having issues with their younger dog. All right?
Fighting each other?
With the other dog. What's that?
Fighting each other?
No. So they had 2 dogs. One dog died.
Okay.
And the remaining dogs started having issues. Like, it was obvious that the dog that passed away was the authority figure, was the confidence, right? So the lady is convinced of the grief, and I'm trying to say, I don't believe dogs grieve like you're experiencing it from them. Like, I don't think the grief you're telling me about is hers. It's yours. Because, the dog whined when I first walked in, and they picked up the dog, right? So they were glomming on to the symptoms of what's normal, right? A little bit of confusion and reflecting whatever the owner's sadness was. And very quickly just kind of started following that as a pattern. But since she was so educated as a psychologist, everything became like I had to convince her, right? And then everything I would say, what I would get in return was
yeah, but
the reason why it wasn't. You know what I mean? And the thing what was interesting to me, there's a couple concepts. I find this fascinating because over and over again, I see this. The inability for people in the mental health profession to see the simplicity of association and how they fit in with it. Over and over again, right? So to me, like, behavior 101 is association. How 2 things connect and the variables that can affect that. And if you manipulate the variables on purpose and you see the connections change, like
how this is working, right? And it's on its most simple level, the thing that therapists I think deal with, we don't, is lying. Like what we're looking at in a dog is the feedback that you're getting. There's no lying, there's no manipulation involved. It's what they're going through. And so it's very interesting to see somebody that's completely convinced that that's what it is, what they're going through. And then to boot, she was super anxious. Some of the things so what's going to happen if, it comes out of, I'm like, and at one point that was so questionable to that, I said, well, what's going to happen if a car drives by and jumps the curb? Like, we're kind of fucked, right? How many things can you want to layer in to worry about? She's a therapist, by the way, a super anxious one. And that's like, that's the part I can't understand, is how much anxiety I'm seeing in these therapists. So I can't trust an anxious therapist either, by the way. It's like a fat personal trainer. Your shit doesn't work if you are teaching people not to be anxious, but you're super anxious. So either you're excusing it in others, can't do it. You know what I mean? Like the whole concept of anxiety now in the mental health is weird. So when she sees it in her dog, she fully accepts wholeheartedly this dog is going through its own anxious situation. And it's like, holy man. And I had 2 days later, I had the same exact appointment, where a dog loses its buddy that was clearly the one that was confidence, right? But I have a very open owner, a super open owner. And what you're able to see is that the dog went through a confused response at the death. The human reinforced the confused response. Now it kind of has legs, it kind of starts to repeat itself. The dog looks around or it goes and does certain things. But I'm able to help her break these down by just seeing them as habits, not as a choice, right? So we're going to use a leash. We're going to take the dog through a different experience so it doesn't have the choice to act that way, and how quickly the dog changes and responds differently, right? I ended up having to leave that first appointment. I walked away, dude. I left. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. It was defense. In the video, I was trying to explain the concept of energy, because everything to this woman had to have like ABC. I mean, it had to have like this level explanation. It had to be doo, 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 doo. And I was trying to say, don't you believe that there's this energetic exchange that goes beyond things? And at one point, stress came up and she goes, I believe they can smell cortisol, because everything was very, very clinical. And I was trying to explain like how she was trying to, I know what it was. I'm trying to help them with the leash, and they're wrapping the leash around their hand.
Tension.
Right? Yeah. And I said, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to wrap it. Her immediate response.
But what if they run away?
No. Was, yeah, but our dog walks good and we've been doing this for a long time. So this can't be connected to the dog's behavior. So this is what she says to me. So since it was some reasoning, everything would go back to logic and reasoning. So when I would say something, she would go to logic and reasoning as to why. And I'm like, do you believe that a baby will feel its mother's stress regardless of the reason? Right? It's just going to feel it, right? So if a mom comes home, the mom doesn't have to go, the reason I'm acting like this is because I was in traffic and it made me stressed and now I'm mad. And that's why I'm vibrating like this. Do you think that they have to do that? Or do you think the baby just innately can feel it and just innately does it? Her response, I don't think they can smell cortisol. Okay. So I show her the video that I just showed you. I showed her the video. And it goes back to the same thing. It goes immediately to some chemical reaction or smell. And I'm like, all right. And we're outside, we're around the corner. I go, good luck to you. And it was funny to immediately, when you walk away, how quickly they'll shift their, it was interesting, but I'd like to go back and do that appointment when I wasn't on such a weird mental state of the previous day. And on top of that, and by the end of that day, dude, it was such a fucking pile on. It was good because it like pushed me far enough. And it was interesting that you were talking about at the beginning of this, because we really didn't have this conversation, that you started to frame things differently. It's exactly what it did. So
But in reverse,
meditation is
backwards.
like,
Yeah.
meditation is what I use to kind of what I almost like heal, I guess. And that's what I did is I just went, fuck. And I just took a day and a half, and I like meditated several times. And I used the word forgiveness. That's just the word that I used, the energy, the concept that I used. And I didn't know if it was outward or inward. You know, I don't know. It wasn't like it was specific that I was forgiving myself or forgiving others, whatever. It just was, to me, the counterbalance to the feeling. And it was weird. It was really weird. It was like a pop. And so it was a shitty series of events, but a healthy ending. I'd be interested to go back and do an appointment with that woman and see how I would do it in a more clear head. Because I know I was not like relaxed about it. I was not trying to make my case, and I was probably just fucking started grinding on her very quickly. But it is interesting. I'm intrigued by the lack of behavioral awareness of what to me seems like simple behavioral things with people in the mental health world. And
Do you think it has anything to do with that they're exposed to so much that they hear a lot of things that, you know, a lot of trauma from people that it does, that, you know, that maybe people aren't able or capable to hold all that?
Yes, I think for sure. I think on one reason why is that to do that job for any period of time, you have to start to learn how to deal with all the bullshit that's put your way. So you have to intentionally learn how to ignore a lot of incoming information, right? Because a lot of it is lies. You're being lied to on a regular basis, or you're being sent information, like you said, you know, traumatic information over and over again. So you have to learn how to just let things go past you. Whereas when you're working with a dog, it's not that way. It's the opposite. You have to put all your attention into what you watch. And if you look at it, they're going to tell you exactly what they're going through. You're not going to get any of that unnecessary information. So I feel like I'm programmed to look at every interaction and understand the conversation. I feel like over time or on some level, that's not the case, but they miss a lot as a result of that. You know, the ability to creatively move variables around to see what actually is a problem is kind of an art that they don't have. And I don't know. And I think the other one is the modern education system. Like, why do you think fear-free training exists now? That's modern education. So there's ideological injections now into what should be objective things, like being able to look at a dog and see how they respond to things should be relatively objective, but it's not. It's very ideological. So that's why we have so many different formulas or theories, and one wants to debunk the other, you know, and that's where it gets odd in the sense that has to come from the education system. That's not coming from function. I'm sorry, what were you going to say? All right, dude.
I think it was about, I don't remember. I also got lost in your shirt. I was reading your shirt.
Oh yeah, I've had this shirt for a while. It's just,
but no, I was laughing in my mind because I'm like, is it St. Patrick's Day? Because I've never seen you wear green ever before.
No, I haven't. But see, it's branching out.
You're finding new colors.
That's how you frame it. Maybe it's green. Maybe to me it's gray.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You know, I didn't know. So I was in Florida when that post came out. And so I didn't know what had happened. Someone brought it to my attention. It was Jackie, actually. She's like, is Todd okay? I'm like, I don't know why. And she's like, that was his post. And so I went and looked at it.
I think they beat her up a little bit too, I think.
Yeah, she was going to defend you. You know, that's what Jackie does. You know, so I went on there and I saw the post, and then I never go to comments. Ever do I ever go to comments? I just avoid comments. But because she had brought this up to me, I was like, oh, let me go see it. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, what the hell? You know? And so then there was some like blue checkmark people in there coming after you and things like that. And I was like, okay. And that's why I was like, oh, let me reach out to you. So I sent you a text, kind of check up on you. Didn't hear from you for a while. And then you finally reached out to me. But I was good. I was happy to know that you were processing it. You know, you were short in your message, but I know you well enough to know that you kind of know, how to get out of these things. And I think some people were just kind of concerned. And then I kept checking up on you. And that's just want to see how you're doing. We had a good talk yesterday. We finally talked on the phone yesterday or 2 days ago. And
well, it's kind of, you realize quickly, like, social media is not real. You know what I mean? It's not real. And I think I've done a pretty good job of after it started to go, cultivating a pretty simple way of doing it. Like, there's really, I mean, you can disagree with it, but I'm not too hot or too cold to where it sets people off. Right. And I got comfortable with that. But the fact that what was surprising to me, and this is the part that it's very difficult to accept a lot of venom that doesn't feel like it's justified. Like, if I felt like I really fucked up, and the way I explain it is how I feel. If I felt like I fucked up and I went out, because you can go to any post I do. I have never broken down a trainer. I don't go in and try to it's not what I do. Right. I've never broken down a post. So I'm comfortable in feeling that being misunderstood is okay. I don't have to necessarily go out and defend it and yank it down or so forth, because that's kind of how I feel about it. But at the same time, it's very difficult to know what to do with all of that pressure and all of that energy. Right. Even though I read it only for the beginning of the first day, I have no idea where it's at now. I haven't looked. I have not brought up social media since then. And so the responsibility I had given myself to make posts, in the absence of it, you realize, what the fuck? Like, it's a lot of energy that there's return. I'm getting business return to some extent, but energetically, no, there's not. It's not. No. And
it's the opposite.
Oh,
takes away.
No way. Because you have to choose a way to deal with the people that are going to come on and have their things to say. And you have to, on some level, you accept that part. And I do. But what is always weird to me is how some people will put so much emotional skin in an invisible game, right? If you go and read some of the posts, people are fucking mad, and they don't know what to do with it. So they're like, all right, I'm putting it out. And then, and then it's weird to me. And like you said, that you never go to the comments. Outside of people I know, I have never commented on a social media post, especially a negative comment, especially thinking that I have to give my opinion to this fucking bullshit right here. Right. I just find it strange.
Same. I'll see stuff. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? But I'm like, I'm not going to comment. Like, why? Like,
or dislike a comment.
It doesn't change anything. It's just, why put that energy out there if it's not going to change anything? And the only thing it changes is how you feel. I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like, that's a whole other world. And actually, I was having a conversation with my son this morning about how the stuff that we see is not real, because they're not real relationships. They're not real conversations. They're not looking in each other's eyes and having a conversation. I think that if I'm big on shaking people's hands, looking them in the eye and having a relationship with them and talking to them, as opposed to this whole like artificial world of what social media is, you know what I mean? And so I think that, once we can accept that it's just this tool that we use to kind of give information, but also it's also used as a weapon.
Oh God. It's used as a release.
Yes.
That's the weapon part people do. And they think they're solving something, but you said it, dude. Energy doesn't dissipate; it just changes forms. And you're gonna get it back if you put that shit out there. It is going to come back to you. So I mean, at the beginning, part of you is like, all right, I'm gonna fight back, and that's why it was like all this stuff that happened on the same day was almost better. Had it just been that post, I might have wanted to fight back. But since I felt like I was getting it from all these different directions, I had to figure it was different. because, part of you is like, dude, I'm going to go with these motherfuckers and I'm going to break down their videos. You want to go in and be like, I don't know. It's an interesting experience, but very quickly, dude, I didn't look at it. I'm not going to try to break that stuff down. So what I'm going to do when I post is I'm just going to go back on. I'll delete the post because I don't want to see it and start doing posts again. But every time I go to do a post, I don't want to. I go to do it. I'm like, no, fuck this. This is stupid. I don't want to do a post. And so it's an interesting perspective behaviorally as somebody who we've just talked about behavior and energy for the last hour. From the perspective of immediately being removed from something that was part of your daily normal, it's interesting because everything improved as far as I had a better morning routine. It's interesting to immediately take something away that, is part of your habit. And
you should do a meme of your morning routine, like a video. You've
guy.
actually, yeah, you saw that?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, you probably missed this, but yeah, just like that guy. Put your face in ice and some water and whatever that is. I hadn't seen the whole thing.
I've gone on Instagram very much. And most of what I'll watch would be like YouTube shorts. So I'm never really on, I don't follow a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram. So not being on social media is easy. What it is like those little dead times in the day where I just want to burn some time on the computer. It's like, that's like would be my exposure to it. But I don't know how kids go through it. Like, I don't know how the youth go through what can happen if you get caught up in something where a lot of people want to have something to say. As a grown adult, it's one thing. But as a 15 or 16 or 17-year-old kid, it's brutal. People are really comfortable saying things not in front of you. And it's a terrible aspect of the social media culture. It's terrible.
And there's one thing I know about you is that you do not shy away from things that are very direct. And sometimes I'm like, "Ooh, that was a lot." But I appreciate you for doing that because people could see that online and be like, "Oh man, he's a jerk." And not that I think you were a jerk doing it. I think it's something that had to be said. Lynn's good at this too, by the way. Some of the things that he says, I was like, "Whoa!" But he'll be like, "Don't worry," because I remember I told Lynn, I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Don't worry, it's okay, I got it." So it's kind of cool how you guys do that. I admire that. I can't do that.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I see it as a flaw. It's one of those things that I'd rather reel in at times, but I've also accepted there's a natural part of it that I feel like I'm drawn to the biggest presence of a situation. And that's just I've kind of accepted it.
You know what? I'm going to bring up something from the past that you may or may not remember. Do you remember the student at TCW who kind of went off of you at the lunch table?
Yes.
The way you handled that was so good. The way you were like, "Hey, let's talk about this. Like, what did I do that, and you kind of just brought it out and you guys just like talked about it. It was really cool because you were doing it right in front of us. You guys talked about it and she goes, "Oh, okay." And you're like, "Oh, okay." Like, it was just this whole thing.
She wrote me a letter the next day, or she wrote a letter that night and gave it to me the next day, like apologizing and the whole deal. Yeah, that was interesting because also we're sitting at lunch and she just, boom, just unloaded on me. Like a question was asked and I answered it or something back and forth. And then I remember everybody kind of stood up and walked away and I'm sitting there, there and I'm just taking it. And I'm like,
I'm just pretending I didn't listen. I'm just keep eating.
Yeah, like, all right, let's go. What's up? Yeah.
Anyways, so this is a good episode. I'm really grateful that we're back.
Yeah.
We have reached out to some people to get some people as a guest. So look forward to those guests that we're going to have on here and get back on our routine of making some episodes.
Yeah. Let's do some interviews.
Yeah.
We got a list.
We do.
All right, guys.
All right. Have a good one. Later.